The Royal Natal Carbineers, one of the oldest and most distinguished regiments in South Africa. Since their inception on the 15th of January 1855, the Carbineers have participated in every campaign in KwaZulu-Natal, from their baptism of fire in the quelling of the Langalibalele Rebellion of 1873, where they suffered their first casualties in action in the Drakensberg, to their fight for survival in the shadow of Mount Isandlwana in January 1879, and in support of the British campaigns against the Boers in the 1899 to 1902 South African War, and the subsequent quelling of the Bambata uprisings in 1906. The Carbineers have a long history in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. When war broke out in 1914, they saw action in German Southwest Africa and were also involved in the short-lived Afrikaner Rebellion of 1914 and the quashing of that uprising. When war broke out in 1939, the Royal Natal Carbineers were mobilized, and like so many other South African volunteer forces,
like the men of South Africa. Rugged, tough and fighting fit, the Springboks are on their way.
Were shipped north, where they took on the Italians in East Africa, and then later onto Egypt to take on the Italians and Germans there. And so, as a proud South African and ex-member of the Natal Carbineers, painting and building a South African force, more specifically a Carbineers platoon, was definitely going to be on the cards. I therefore welcome you back to Lessons from the Front and this showcasing of my Natal Carbineers bolt action platoon. I was going to showcase this army earlier when version 2 was still in its strength, but with version 3 coming out, it got me thinking, do I need to purchase more figures in order to field my Carbineers? And so what I'll be showing you today is my 1,250 point Natal Carbineers, perhaps you can call it a company because there's more than one platoon, using the existing figures that I have. Right, so this is a long list, so let me get cracking with my platoon commander of my rifle platoon. Version 3 seems to have moved away from specific ranks. The first challenge I noticed in creating a list using existing figures was that I was short of command figures. I don't like fielding single figure command teams, but in the spirit of not painting additional figures for version 3 for this list, due to not having enough points, I had to keep all but one of my platoon commanders as single figures. I did have enough points, however, to make my rifle platoon commander a veteran at 39 points. He obviously gained a lot of experience while campaigning in East Africa. Next, I'll show you my rifle platoon sniper, anti-tank rifle, and light mortar teams. Only the first two teams will be kept in the 1,250 point list, as the light mortar team was upgraded and used in the heavy weapons team as a medium mortar. I'll show you that later. As per my trend for building bolt action lists, small teams that will see action are fielded as veterans. Do you guys run with similar philosophies? The sniper team is 67 points and the anti-tank rifle team is 33 points. And to round off my rifle platoon, I have 3 infantry sections of 8 men each. The NCOs each have Tommy guns, and each section includes a Bren gunner and a loader. Now let's move on to the next platoon, which is the heavy weapons platoon. For the reason mentioned earlier, my platoon commander is a single man team, not something I prefer, so I'll need to purchase a few additional figurines in the future. However, for this list, I fielded this platoon commander as inexperienced, due partly for his recent arrival from the port of Durban, South Africa, but also to keep within the total point count of 1,250. At 21 points, he'll need to keep his head down and stay out of trouble. This small platoon has 2 other teams, both of which are veteran. The 3-man medium machine gun team sports a Vickers with 6 shots and is a fixed team at 65 points. The medium mortar has a range of 12 to 60 inches, and along with its spotter, costs 64 points. Both of these weapons, due to their immobility, will need to be deployed fairly carefully at the start of the game. This brings me to my third platoon, and another platoon commander who will be staying as far back as possible. His low cost of 21 points does create an additional order dice, so I guess he has his uses. He will command a mobile artillery platoon that is comprised of 2 weapons. The 2-pounder light anti-tank gun has a range of 48 inches, a gun shield, and the 3-man crew can fire a single shot at a penetration of +4. This is a veteran team and comes in at 65 points. As it is fixed, I've paid for a regular Jeep at 18 points to tow this gun. The Jeep has a light anti-aircraft gun at 3 shots. The second weapon is the iconic 25-pounder, classed as a light howitzer, and for 65 points I get a spotter and a gun with HE 2 inches and a gun shield. This gun is also fixed, so I've paid 15 points for its tractor, in case I needed to bring these off table. As my children's maternal great-grandfather was the regimental sergeant major of the Transvaal Horse Artillery that bravely fought at Sidi Rezeg, and I hope to feature great-granddad Charles Hamer in a future video, this is the platoon that I'll be first improving upon. It is mandatory that my 4th platoon has all its sections motorized. The recce platoon has a regular 43-point lorry with a handy 6 shots from its pintle-mounted MMG that also serves as an anti-aircraft gun. This vehicle will transport a squad of 8 Carbineers at 99 points. This squad has an LMG and their NCO carries a Thompson submachine gun. The 65-point Bren carrier will transport a 2-man regular command team that cost 40 points. As recce's, these boys will certainly see action. And then finally, the armored platoon is my 5th and final platoon in this experiment and consists of a regular M3A1 Stuart 3, which at 125 points has a turret-mounted light anti-tank gun at +4, and a coaxial MMG. Both the forward-facing MMG mounted in the hull and the coaxial have 6 shots. The other vehicle rounding off this platoon, and was featured in an earlier video that I made, is this Marmon Harrington armored car. For 135 points, this regular vehicle gets to fire a light anti-tank gun at +4 and has a 6-shot coaxial MMG to deal with pesky enemy infantry squads who may venture within range. So, there you have it, my Natal Carbineers. Supported by 4 other platoons and not needing any additional builds if I was to play it as it is. So what do you think? My gut tells me that I'll need to cut back on the number of platoons and perhaps build and paint additional figures to make the list more competitive. At this point, however, I have very little experience with the dynamics of version 3. But I was successful in my attempt to build a list that complied with my goal of using all of my figures and models in my collection and to stay within the 1,250 point limit, with this list coming in at 1,247 points. I trust you enjoyed this showcasing of my Natal Carbineers and that you enjoyed the contents of this video. Please do leave your thoughts below and give my video a thumbs up, and please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. Until next time then, happy gaming!